You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. In Washington, the family of a black man shot by a Clark County deputy is seeking $17 million from the county in the wrongful death lawsuit. In an independent review, a panel of prosecutors determined that Deputy Sean Boyle acted, quote, in good faith during a traffic stop that ended in the shooting death of 30-year-old Jenoah Donald. Now, Donald's family wants the officer to resign and Attorney General Bob Ferguson to review the case. Donald spent more than a week on life support after the shooting and died on February 12th. So here's the pattern right here, Faraji. If you notice, and this is why when the Chicago police chief, I think it was in Chicago, where they announced they were going to stop doing these, no, that wasn't Chicago, it was another city, I can't remember the city. They were going to stop doing these misdemeanor traffic stops. That, if you think about how many stories that we've done, most of them are tied to traffic stops.
Right.
And most of them are such minor stuff. And it's like, are y'all looking for stuff? What are y'all doing?
And that's, again, what Brother Michael was mentioning. That's the point of when we have these larger conversations about policing, it's like, and I've had many conversations on my radio show about this, it's like common sense just goes out the window. And then when you have officers who are making dumbass decisions, they start to rely on the training. Oh, that's what we're taught on all of these things. But common sense, you know, I'll never forget, Brother Roland, and I don't know how that story of Sandra Bland affected you, brother, but for me, I mean, to see a black woman who was simply stopped due to a minor traffic stop end up dead. And when you see the video of how, as the police officer in that case, he got so upset that he wanted to start yanking at her and pulling at her because his authority was being challenged. These jokers, some of these jokers got real ego problems. And I'm convinced that some of them probably became police officers just to simply to make themselves feel better about having some authority and power. But when you have these conversations, and I've always been an advocate, psychological evaluations on in some cities like Baltimore and others, they talk about every 5 years. You need to have these like once a year. You need to have some checks and mental health checks because these officers, yes, they are undergoing some tremendous amount of pressure, especially the police officers in 2021. But at the same time, how are they processing? How are they handling the pressures of their profession? And so it won't affect the judgment when they go to the next call. And I think that's the big part of this. And when we look at how these calls are made and how these cases happen, small, minor things can be accelerated to a major thing. And it becomes absolutely, it creates madness in the communities that these officers serve in.
And this is where city councils must do their job, where they say, no, enough of these basic traffic stops where you're pulling somebody over for some silliness when it comes to the thing hanging from the air freshener from the mirror and stuff like that. No, these are the problems, how they escalate. Basic traffic stops, you shouldn't be dead because of a basic traffic stop.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, when you think about, I mean, Faraji brought up Sandra Bland, but we can name so many people have died this way. And they always talk about it's dangerous for the officer, but I always hear it's usually the citizens that end up dead at the end of these exchanges, whether we're talking about Dante Wright. I mean, Terrence Crutcher, right, from the officer that killed Terrence Crutcher, I mean, a motorist in distress. And these things happen all too often. But when you tell people over and over and over again that your job is so dangerous, and again, nobody's trying to minimize that, but that every person that you encounter is a danger to you, is a threat to you, then what do you expect? I mean, in this case with Mr. Donald, the officer said he saw a screwdriver Not that Mr. Donald had it in his hand, not that he was wielding it at him, not that he was doing anything other than complying with the traffic stop at that moment. But that was your cause to try to pull him out of his vehicle. I mean, it's not even clear that he even knew why he was stopped. And of course, we don't know what happened because there's no video. There's no other evidence besides the officers who appeared there and their word. And unfortunately, Mr. Donald is dead. I mean, we don't know how this would have turned out had he lived. I mean, maybe it would be something like we heard with Mr. Brown in Spotsylvania. But as they say, dead men tell no tales. And I think all too often we rely on the police officers and their judgment. But if they're under such duress that the only thing they can do to think about saving themselves in those moments is to shoot people, why would we then trust their same testimony about what just happened in these cases where people are fatally wounded? And that's what we did here in this case with Mr. Donald. And, you know, it's just, I mean, that the board would say, yeah, they did some things that were wrong, but it really wouldn't have changed the outcome is outlandish.
That doesn't make sense. I'm sorry. Go ahead. It just doesn't make sense.
But again, this Michael is part of the deal. This is why you got to have people, those who say voting doesn't matter. Guess what? If you have a city council form of government, guess what? The city council, the mayor, they hire the police chief. They ought to be able to say, no, enough with these silly traffic stops. If you have a city manager form of government, that means that the city manager hires a police chief, but the city manager is hired by the city council and the mayor. And so people who say voting doesn't matter, this is where who the leader of a department is, setting the policies of the department also matter.
Well, you know, Roland, I've said before here on your show, politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing the law, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. The city council usually approves the budget in many cities, like the city of Detroit. City council approves the budget for the police department. The mayor appoints the police chief. The mayor is elected. The mayor helps sets the tone for policing in the city. But the city council, these are elected positions, okay? And then when you have a city manager, like in Ferguson, Missouri, with Michael Brown, the city manager had the real power. The mayor was a part-time job. The city manager had the real power, but the city manager was elected. And then people started realizing, well, wait a second, we can vote, we can vote, and we can vote people into city council. We can vote people in the mayor. We can take over the city manager position. So people started understanding more so the connection between conditions, policies, and who's in office. And that's what we have to do. We have to make a direct connection between who's in office, the laws and policies written, and conditions, because there's a direct correlation.
Folks, back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Racial injustice is a scourge on this nation, and the Black community has felt it for generations. We have an obligation to do something about it. Whether it's canceling student debt, increasing the minimum wage, or investing in Black-owned businesses, the Black community deserves so much better. I'm Nina Turner, and I'm running for Congress to do something about it.